Hi, my name is Lindsay Casey. For my Western Governors University Capstone project and my Master's of Science in Curriculum Instruction, I did an applied research to create an organizational program. The program was called the FLY program. It's on the topic of culturally responsive practices preserving Native American identity. The problem that was addressed through the research was a lack of Native American culturally responsive practices on reservations due to racial mismatch amongst teachers and students, as well as an integration of authentic culture or lack of integration of cultural experiences on reservations. This impacts students' engagement, academics, and attendance. The question that was used to help further this investigation was how an extended school day program created with using best practice literature be developed to address these culturally responsive practices for Native Americans. The research methodology that was used was qualitative research with a content analysis of the written materials. We used a data collection instrument of a data table matrix. This is an example of the matrix that was used. The references were all put here. There were many more than just these. And then the themes were here, which were also more of these. They were coded. The boxes were checked when the theme appeared in the text, and any discrepancies in the or differences in the coding of the theme were also written or marked in the box. Then the analysis techniques that was used was coding the themes. The themes were coded by theme and also added up into numbers and put into a bar graph to show the coded themes in best practice literature. You can see that the top themes in best practice literature on the top of the bar graph, and the least coded themes are in the bottom. It looks heavily on the top of the bar graph for themes that I should apply to the FLY program for Native American culturally responsive practices. Authentic culture was on the top of the grid. It was equally matched with Native American teachers because of Native American history and trauma created from white boarding schools in the United States and Canada. Children as young as the age of 5 were taken off of their reservations and put into white boarding schools where many of them were abused, and the Indian was taught out of the Native American, also causing some identity and loss of identity through the years and to what we see today into that trauma, and also creating teachers to teach using what we call a deficit-based approach. Therefore, the culturally responsive practice would be to use a strength-based approach, build relationships, start building in that trust that was lost through this history, and using the language and developing and bringing that back into the culture. All of these were greatly linked to the student engagement, teaching authentic culture of their traditions, spirituality, teaching their values led to engagement of students wanting to participate more in their education because they could see how it relates to who they are, and they could truly understand who they were by developing by healing generational trauma, developing their values and what they believe, and understanding what they believe and who they are. Therefore, here's just another form of the results: Native American culture and language. 12, building those trusting relationships within the community. 11, relationships between educators and the students using a strength-based mindset instead of deficit was in the 10. And Native American teachers, mentors, building student identity through their values, tradition, purpose, and healing from that trauma at a 9. This is a more visual representation of the content analysis of written themes that we discussed when we looked at the bar graph above. We can start with the generational trauma and educational history for Native Americans with white educators in those boarding schools. Currently, we're still unintentionally using white dominant culture traditions continued throughout because we have white teachers, which really in turn only further leads to this aspect of loss of identity, not understanding who you are, because even when white teachers, attempt to use culturally responsive practices, they generally do so in stereotypical ways, therefore not truly being authentic and furthering shame and lost identity within the culture. We also have this through educational policies, which may prevent and stop these culturally responsive practices happening with these Native American teachers through this deficit mindset. So if we look here, these are the ways we want to leave from here and have a goal of moving this way, building these trusting relationships between schools and community tribal members and the Native American families, using this strength-based mindset, going in understanding that they know what they need and value in their community, and that they have strengths, and that the white ways are not better than, they're just different. These practices need to be done authentically, not stereotypically, and majority of the sources discuss this, and that Native American teachers are the ones who can really do that, because white educators only unintentionally further encourage this deficit and shame towards their identity, even though now is not necessarily intentional. However, Native American teachers would truly understand what the culture is and what they're going through, and how they can teach through those lens and through that perspective. They can teach the values, tradition, and language that is necessary for students to truly feel that they know who they are, have a healthy tribal identity, which will in turn lead to that student engagement piece, which will also increase attendance, because students will want to be at school because they'll understand why they're there, how it relates to them and their culture and their families, and their families will be more encouraged to send them to school because they'll feel a part of it. They'll feel involved in involving them in the leadership and coming up with what kind of programs to teach and how to integrate them in the school. The methodology had strengths and weaknesses. Some of the strengths were that there were multiple confirmations of the effective culturally responsive practices across many different reservations, studies, and within different researchers, therefore also minimizing any biases that would be created, and also providing multiple uses across any Native American reservation. However, that also leads to the weakness, whereas there may be some cultural details that were specific to certain Native tribes and reservations that may not be included in the program, as well as my perspectives being on the articles, the themes that I chose for the content analysis. However, because there's such a large number of the studies, it can be also confirmed that these are accurate in the studies and the themes were well chosen. Some influential factors in the culturally responsive practices and in the articles that were read. Some of the articles may have had some political bias. Some talk about critical race theory and things like that, however, done in mostly in factual bases, and also discussing educational reform, policies, and laws in ways that it is preventing these culturally responsive practices from truly taking effect into the schools, because we know that Native American teachers need to be a part of the process. Right now, majority of the teachers are white, therefore inhibiting the culturally responsive practices, even through professional development, even though that was a highly coded theme, it was more given in most of the text as a suggestion of what to do to continue on. But even with the professional development, the white teachers are really only seeing things through a stereotypical lens and unable to truly understand what Native Americans have gone through because they didn't go through it. And Native American teachers that choose to teach at the schools will oftentimes get ostracized from their Native American community and culture because they are in a dominant culture, white schools, being forced to use these high-stake testings, Common Core practices in the school environment, therefore removing authentic cultural experiences for Native American students, even when they have Native American teachers, because they're still held under the same standards of having to conform to white educational practices. Some further investigations that could happen is to really investigate how these educational policies do prevent these authentic cultural experiences from happening. We could also look at a comparative study of culturally responsive practices for other races in a variety of school settings. So, for instance, the top coded themes of authentic culture, trust in the community, and a strength-based approach, we could look and compare to see if these top coded themes are also apparent in other cultures, Asian American, African American, or Latino American racial groups. Because some of the other racial groups do have similar histories with white educators and history of educational practices, such as the civil rights movement with African Americans and segregation. So it would be interesting to see how these coded themes compare to these. Some of the differences would be school settings, whereas Native Americans are on their own sovereign land, and many of these other racial groups are more integrated into other schools. The impacts on the educational setting is that it is not the teacher's job, which this is a good relief. It's not the teacher's job to go in and fix any deficits. Let the students guide, show that they have strengths, move slowly to help heal that trauma, build those relationships so that we can develop a cultural healthy identity through Native American teachers teaching with their cultural lens, authentic cultural lens, the skills necessary for students to be able to see how their education connects with their own lives and culture to fully engage them. So the program that was created was the FLY program. This is the booklet. It can be used as a PDF, printed off in whatever fashion that the reservation has. It can also be ordered as a booklet or used as on canva.com, purchased as a link, and used and assigned to students on technology, depending on the budget and needs of the reservation using the program. There are 4 main components to the identity development process in the FLY program. Groups should be separated into age group and experience. You might have a lower level, upper elementary level, middle level group, depending on your numbers, age, experience. The program does require a program mentor to lead the group, create schedules. They should meet after school, possibly in a neutral location, to help start bridging those relationship gaps and having neutral territory. 2 times a week for about an hour or so. This program is meant to last throughout the school year. We'll start with the value development process. Program mentors will come in, teach stories and history about their community, traditional stories, and students will gather what values they relate to according to those cultural stories. Then they will develop skills that relate to those values that they had picked. They will pick 4 core values, pick a skill they want to learn. Cultural mentors will come in and teach those skills. Students will determine a community project they want to do to help their community or further their own tribal identity, use their strengths to contribute. And then they will work on that for about 10 hours for each 10-hour project they do for each year. They will earn a medallion and have a celebration ceremony presentation led by cultural program mentors so that the celebration is culturally specific and used as the tribe would do a ceremony. This is how each step of the process will look. As we know, one of the top coded themes was building relationships with mentors and tribal members. Students will brainstorm tribal members who they want to come and share their tribal stories in these 3 categories. This is an individual page that we'll work on. Then, as a whole group, they'll determine the 6 mentors they want to invite to be a part of their program and some alternatives in case those mentors do not want to participate or are not able to. Here are some script ideas that students can use to help invite those mentors to the school. The program mentor will pick a date for all of them to come. They will all come and have a student relationship building day. Before the mentors come, students will put the name, why they chose them, questions. This is like a KWL kind of chart, what questions they might have for those mentors and what they learned about them when they came. Program mentors can also plan other student relationship activities that they may have that they want to use, depending on relationships and comforts of mentors, etc. Once they are here, then the program mentor will get with each mentor, put their name, what story or tradition or history they'd be willing to come in and share with the fly program, and then what date they're coming in. You need a different date for each mentor. The students will explore what values are, why they're important to them, and see a few examples of some values that they can use as they develop their values by listening to these historical traditional stories. Cultural stories will be told by the cultural mentors. They will tell the stories. This is a graphic organizer. Student will use one of these for each mentor day. Take story notes. You can use symbols, pictures, native language to take notes on the story. Discuss lessons that can be learned from these stories and histories with the cultural mentor. And then students will determine 5 values that they could have in relation to the story and the lessons learned from this story. They can use, again, this page to help them with ideas of values that they might come up with. I've included in the booklet a page for each mentor. Thoughts, connections for the students. 1, 2, 6 graphic organizers for the students. Once they determine their values, they'll have a value brainstorming day. The program mentor can do gallery walks, journaling, carousel, or other engagement strategies to help students narrow down the 5 values for each mentor into 2 personal ones that they feel strongly relate to them. Then they will narrow it down again to 4 core values that really relate to them and something that they want to learn more about or feel that is something they wouldn't want to get rid of in their life. This page is to help students move on to the next stage of the program, which is skill development. They'll determine skills that would match values. This is just a practice page. I put in a few examples here for them. They can go in here and practice bravery. What could be a skill that I could learn that would be in bravery? I don't know, hunting. And they use the program mentors to help them come up with ideas. They're going to do the same thing with their own values that they chose. Come up with 4 different skills that they want to learn according to the values that they've chosen. Then I've provided some pages for the program mentor to plan out what skill is going to be taught. They'll gather the skill pages from the students, who is going to teach it, which mentor is going to teach it, and when they're coming in. They can be scheduled at least up to 6 per day. All the mentors can come in and teach a different skill on a different day. The students will be using the following graphic organizer when the mentor is coming in to teach the skills, maybe in small groups, depending on the needs of the group. The values here, the skills here, the mentor that's teaching it here, the cultural connection is here. Students will then take notes and lists to help them if they want to do maybe step-by-step directions if they'd like to do this skill again. Then they'll reflect on how it went and maybe some possible project ideas, which is, we've included all the values here, which is the next step in the process. There are some blank pages here in case there's a day where one of their skills isn't being taught. They can use these pages to learn more about other students' values. Then they'll use this project idea brainstorm. Once again, we're starting with our 4 core values, the skill that was taught, and then a project idea. So here's an example. For instance, let's say their value was creative expression. They put creative expression in this box. Then beadwork was the skill they learned. So they're going to put beadwork in the skill box. Now, a project idea, including the skill that they learned, could be to create a medicine pouch using beadwork and use them to trade or sell for other family or community needs. That project idea will go in this box. They'll come up with a project idea for each of their boxes and do a little brainstorm down here of pros and cons of the projects and reflections on which one they want to narrow it down. Then they'll write a proposal to narrow down their project with the value skill project they've chosen and the goal of it and what the cultural significance will be. The program mentor and cultural mentor will have to sign off on the project. They will then plan out their project. What steps are they going to take? Do they need permission for anything? Do they need any volunteers or help? They can rewrite here their project chosen. They can write materials and supplies needed. They'll need to check in with their mentor at least 3 times throughout creating their project to make sure they're on the right track. They can write any notes down here that the mentor gives them, and they'll need approval before they begin their project again. They'll use this material order form. The mentor will give them a date that they want to order, or they might write down here a different way they want them to order materials. This is a form they can use to order them if they need it. They'll use this project log to write the steps in the process of working on their project. They'll put the date they did it, the step they did it, the hours they spent, and check it off. They need to do at least 10 hours in the project. There are a couple of log pages in here for them. Once they finish their project, they'll do a reflection. How did they do? Did they make their goal? What was this important connection that they made? How did they impact themselves or others? And what could they have done differently next time? Then they'll reflect on how this relates to them, who they are, what they stand for, their likes, dislikes, and how they are going to contribute to society. They will then plan out how they're going to share their project in a presentation. What format are they going to use? There are ideas up here. What are they going to bring to show their project? Maybe photos or samples. Who they're going to invite, who they want to thank, and then they're going to write out a plan of what they're going to say and how they're going to talk to their community and family members about their tribal language, or with using tribal language about their project and what they've experienced. Then they'll do a reflection on how the program went, any ideas or suggestions or things that could be done differently, and they'll earn their celebration medallion, one for each year that they complete their project and value. This directly relates to the research of the program. This is using cultural experiences through using Native American teachers, building up their identity, healing that trauma, feeling pride in who they are, developing these skills, and understanding who they are and how they can contribute to better themselves and others in a way that is beneficial to their community, showing them how learning to read, write, speak, all of these skills are important for them to learn and how it relates to their identity. Therefore, showing them that it's okay to engage in the education, that it's okay to learn, it's okay to grow, and they get to choose in what ways that helps and benefits them. Therefore, being culturally responsive practices on the Native American reservation and helping to grow slowly, one step at a time. Thank you.